The Pacific Research Station hummed with the quiet efficiency of a well-organized scientific outpost. Jack Martinez stood at the large glass window of the main observation deck, his weathered hands clutching a steaming mug of coffee. Outside, the ocean churned with an unusual intensity. Dark clouds hung low, promising a storm that would make even experienced marine researchers think twice about venturing out. Jack was different. At 42, he had spent more time with waves and marine life than most people spend with their closest friends. His olive skin, etched with lines from years of sun and salt, told stories of countless rescue missions and marine research expeditions. Tonight was no different. Something felt off about the water. As the station's lead marine biologist, Jack had developed an almost supernatural sense for ocean changes. The waves tonight moved with an unnatural rhythm, almost like they were trying to communicate something. He squinted, his sharp green eyes scanning the turbulent surface. Most researchers would have dismissed the feeling, but Jack trusted his instincts. Without hesitation, he grabbed his emergency rescue gear. The other researchers looked up, surprised. Dr. Emily Chen, his longtime colleague, called out, "Jack, the storm warning is extreme. You can't go out now." But Jack was already moving. He pulled on his specialized marine rescue suit, a marvel of modern engineering that could withstand extreme water conditions. "Something's out there," he muttered, more to himself than to anyone else. The wind howled as Jack stepped outside. Massive waves crashed against the rocky shoreline, sending spray high into the air. Normal rescue protocols would suggest waiting. Normal rescuers would stay inside. Jack was anything but normal. He activated the powerful searchlight attached to his suit and began walking along the beach's edge. The light cut through the darkness, revealing nothing but churning water and flying debris. Then, for just a moment, something caught his eye. A flash of movement that didn't belong to the waves. Jack's heart raced. Years of experience had taught him to recognize when something was wrong. He pulled the rescue cable from his belt and secured it to a nearby rock formation. The waves were dangerous, but Jack had faced worse. With practiced movements, he dove into the water. The cold hit him like 1,000 needles, but Jack pushed forward. Years of training and countless rescue missions had prepared him for moments like these. He fought against the current, each stroke calculated and powerful. The waves tried to push him back, but Jack was determined. And then he saw it. A small figure, definitely not human, struggling against the violent currents. Its skin seemed to shimmer with an impossible iridescence, catching what little light existed in the stormy night. Not a fish. Not any marine creature he recognized. Something entirely different. Jack knew he had seconds to act. The figure was small, perhaps what would be considered a child in its species, and was losing its fight against the merciless ocean. No hesitation. No second-guessing. He pushed forward with all his strength. The rescue was brutal. Waves crashed over him. The current tried to pull him under. But Jack Martinez was not a man who gave up easily. With a final powerful stroke, he reached the struggling creature. As his hand touched the shimmering skin, something extraordinary happened. For a brief moment, their eyes met, and Jack realized this was no ordinary rescue. This was the beginning of something far beyond a simple marine rescue. The research station's medical bay was eerily quiet. Jack sat next to a small examination table, his wet rescue suit replaced by a dry lab coat. The creature he had pulled from the ocean now lay wrapped in a specially designed thermal blanket, looking both fragile and alien. Dr. Emily Chen moved carefully, her hands hovering over advanced scanning equipment. "This is impossible," she whispered, more to herself than to Jack. The scanner showed a biological structure completely unlike anything they had ever seen. Skin that seemed to shift colors like a living chameleon. Respiratory structures that didn't match any known terrestrial or marine life. Jack leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the small being. Its breathing was strange, a mix of gasping and a rhythmic pulsing that reminded him of gills, but it was alive. And it was definitely not from Earth. The creature's eyes flickered open. Large, impossibly deep eyes that seemed to hold entire universes. They were a swirling mix of colors, blues, greens, and hints of something beyond human perception. When those eyes met Jack's, he felt a strange connection. Not just a look, but something deeper. Water, the creature whispered. The word came out broken, almost like a song mixed with a mechanical translation. Before anyone could react, Jack reached for a water bottle. Dr. Chen tried to stop him. "Jack, we don't know." But Jack was already holding the water to the creature's lips. Something extraordinary happened. As the water touched its mouth, the creature's skin began to shimmer even more intensely. Tiny, almost invisible structures emerged, something between gills and something entirely unknown. The station's communication system crackled to life. A stern voice cut through the silence. "This is Director Harrison. We need a full report immediately." Jack knew what was coming. Government agencies, military personnel, research teams, they would all want a piece of this discovery. But something in him wanted to protect the small, vulnerable being. The creature spoke again, this time with more clarity. "Zara," it said, pointing to itself. "My name is Zara." Dr. Chen's scientific curiosity battled with her human compassion. "Jack, do you understand what we're looking at? This isn't just a new species. This could be first contact with an extraterrestrial intelligence." Jack's mind raced. He had spent his entire life studying marine life, understanding the delicate balance of ocean ecosystems. But this was different. This was something beyond any scientific classification. The door burst open. Two men in dark suits entered, their eyes scanning the room with practiced efficiency. Military intelligence. Jack could spot them a mile away. "Mr. Martinez," the taller agent said, "we'll take it from here." But Jack stood up. Something in his stance made even the trained agents pause. "Her name is Zara," he said firmly, "and she's under my protection." Zara's eyes shifted, looking between Jack and the agents. Her skin pulsed with a soft, almost warning light. The medical equipment around her began to hum, not with electrical interference, but with something that felt almost alive. Dr. Chen looked at Jack, then at Zara. Something was happening. Something that would change everything they knew about life, about the universe. The first contact was not going to be a clean scientific procedure. It was going to be messy, complicated, and completely unexpected. Just like Jack Martinez liked it. 3 days had passed since Zora's rescue, and the Pacific Research Station had transformed. What was once a quiet marine research facility now buzzed with an electric tension that everyone could feel, but nobody could fully explain. Dr. Michael Rodriguez, the station's senior medical researcher, was the first to witness Zora's extraordinary abilities. It happened completely by accident. That morning, a junior researcher named Tyler had been working with some delicate marine sample equipment. In a moment of carelessness, he knocked over a heavy tray of specialized glass containers. The crash was loud, and the sound of shattering glass echoed through the lab. Tyler's hand was badly cut, blood streaming between his fingers. Zara, who had been quietly observing from a corner of the lab, moved faster than anyone expected. Before Jack or Dr. Chen could react, she touched Tyler's wounded hand. What happened next defied every law of medical science Jack had ever known. The wound began to close immediately, not slowly, not gradually, instantly. The deep cut sealed itself, leaving behind nothing but smooth, unblemished skin. Tyler stared at his hand in complete shock. The other researchers froze, their mouths hanging open. "What? How?" Tyler stammered. Jack approached Zara carefully. "Can you do this often?" he asked. Zara's iridescent skin shifted colors, a rippling pattern that seemed to communicate more than her limited English could express. "Help," she said simply. "Always help." Dr. Rodriguez ran a series of tests, each more complicated than the last. Blood samples, tissue scans, cellular analysis. Everything about Zora was unlike anything in human medical records. Her cellular regeneration wasn't just fast. It was instantaneous. More than that, it seemed intelligent. The healing wasn't a passive process, but an active, controlled mechanism. "This is beyond healing," Dr. Rodriguez explained to Jack later that evening. "It's like her cells can communicate, can understand exactly what needs to be repaired. It's not just biological repair, it's biological reconstruction." The implications were staggering. If Zora's abilities could be understood, it would revolutionize human medicine. Severe injuries, genetic disorders, perhaps even aging itself could potentially be addressed. But not everyone saw it as a medical breakthrough. Colonel Richard Hansen from a top-secret government research division arrived that afternoon. His steel-gray eyes missed nothing. When he heard about Tyler's incident, his interest became something more predatory than scientific. "This isn't just a medical discovery," Hansen told Jack privately. "This is a potential weapon." Jack's protective instinct flared. "She's not a weapon. She's a living being." Hansen's smile didn't reach his eyes. "In our world, Mr. Martinez, everything is a potential resource." Zora seemed to sense the tension. Her skin would change colors more rapidly when Hansen was around. Quick flashes of warning colors that reminded Jack of how certain marine creatures signaled danger. That night, Jack found Zora looking out at the ocean. Her reflection in the glass was both beautiful and haunting, a being not quite of water, not quite of land. "Home?" she asked Jack, her large eyes reflecting a deep sadness. Jack didn't know how to answer. Where was her home? What was her real story? "We'll find your way home," he promised, not knowing how complicated that promise would become. Little did Jack know, Zora's abilities were just the beginning of a much larger story. A story that would soon involve not just the research station, but potentially the entire human race. The research station's briefing room had never felt so tense. Jack sat beside Zora, watching as she carefully manipulated a holographic projection with her delicate, shimmering hands. Dr. Emily Chen stood by the main display, her professional demeanor barely hiding her excitement. "Tell us about your people," Jack prompted gently. Zora's eyes, those impossible, universe-containing eyes, seemed to look both everywhere and nowhere at once. When she spoke, her words came out in a mixture of broken English and something that sounded like music and mathematics combined. "Aquarian Collective," she began, her fingers dancing across the holographic interface. Images began to form. A world entirely different from Earth. An ocean planet with massive floating cities, structures that seemed to breathe and move like living organisms. Towers of crystal and water stretched beyond imagination, connected by streams of light that pulsed like living arteries. Dr. Chen leaned forward. "You're from an ocean world." Zora nodded. "Not just ocean. Living ocean. Our cities are alive. They think. They grow." Her skin rippled with colors that seemed to echo her words. Blues, greens, and strange purples that no human eye had ever fully comprehended. The holographic display shifted. New images appeared. Strange, predatory ships that looked more like mechanical nightmares than any spacecraft humans had ever imagined. Dark, angular shapes that seemed to eat light itself. "Void hunters," Zora said, her voice dropping to a whisper that felt like a warning. Jack felt a chill run down his spine. The ships looked like living nightmares, technology so advanced it seemed to blur the line between machine and living creature. Massive structures that could consume entire planetary systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. "They hunt," Zora continued, "not for resources, not for territory. They hunt for potential, for life that can be transformed, converted." Dr. Chen's scientific mind raced with questions. Converted into what? Zora's skin went dark, a color that seemed to absorb all light in the room. "Weapons. Tools. Their technology doesn't just take, it changes, turns living beings into something else." The hologram showed terrifying scenes. Entire planetary systems reduced to nothing. Massive ships that consumed entire civilizations, leaving behind only twisted technological remnants. Jack could see why Zara was so scared. "My mission," she said softly, "was to find protection, to find allies." Colonel Hansen, who had been silently watching from the corner, stepped forward. His military mind was already calculating strategic implications. "Your healing abilities, your technology, they could be powerful weapons against these void hunters." But Jack saw something different in Zora's eyes. This wasn't about weapons. This was about survival, about finding hope. "We're listening," Jack said, placing a gentle hand on Zora's shoulder. The hologram changed again. This time, it showed something unexpected. Not just Zora's world, but a network. Countless civilizations, connected by thin lines of light. Some strong, some barely surviving. All connected by a single thread of hope. "Not all battles are won with weapons," Zora whispered. "Some are won by understanding, by seeing." Outside the briefing room, the ocean continued to move. Waves crashed against the research station's walls, a reminder that beneath the surface, entire worlds existed that humans had never imagined. And now, those worlds were about to become very real. The research station had transformed. What was once a quiet marine research facility now looked like something between a high-tech laboratory and a defensive bunker. Jack Martinez stood in the center of the main control room, surrounded by a team of scientists and engineers who were working on something unprecedented. Zora moved between workstations, her iridescent skin helping to interface with complex technological systems. Her touch could activate, modify, and enhance equipment in ways no human could understand. Jack watched in amazement as she connected seemingly unrelated pieces of technology, creating a defensive network that was both beautiful and terrifying. "They will come," Zora said quietly. Her English was improving, but her words still carried an otherworldly rhythm. "The Void Hunters always come." Dr. Emily Chen looked up from a complex array of computer screens. "How can we prepare? Your technology is so different from ours." Zara's fingers danced over a holographic display. Layers of technological schematics appeared, complex networks that looked like living circuits. "Not about technology," she explained, "about understanding, adaptation." Jack had brought together an unlikely team. Marine researchers, retired military personnel, computer experts, all united by an impossible mission. Protect Zara. Understand her. Prepare for a threat most people didn't even know existed. Colonel Hansen wasn't happy about the approach. "We should be weaponizing her abilities," he argued. But Jack and Dr. Chen knew better. This wasn't about creating a weapon. This was about survival. The defensive systems they were building were unlike anything Earth had seen before. Zara showed them how to create adaptive technologies, systems that could change, learn, and respond faster than any traditional computer network. Her healing abilities weren't just biological. They were a form of advanced problem-solving that could be applied to technology. "The Void Hunters consume," Zora explained. "They see life as a resource to be converted. But life is more than that. Life adapts." Jack watched as she connected a simple marine tracking device with advanced alien technology. The device transformed before their eyes, becoming something that could detect technological signatures from light years away. The research station's location was no accident. Nestled on the Pacific coast, with deep underwater research capabilities, it was the perfect base for their preparation. Jack's years of marine research suddenly made sense. He had always studied adaptation, how life finds a way to survive in those challenging environments. "We're creating a warning system," Dr. Chen explained to the team. "Not just for us, for anyone who might be threatened." Zora's skin shifted colors, a complex language of its own. Blues and greens mixed with warning shades of red and purple. She was communicating more than words could express. By nightfall, the research station looked like something from a science fiction movie. Adaptive shields that could change their molecular structure. detection systems that could read technological signatures from impossible distances, communication networks that could bypass traditional limitations. "Why are you helping us?" Jack asked Zora during a quiet moment. Her response was simple but profound. "Because you didn't ask who I was. You just helped." Outside, the ocean crashed against the shore. Waves that had once brought Zara to this moment continued their endless dance. Something was coming. Something that would change everything. And they would be ready. The first attack came without warning. It was 3:17 in the morning when the sky outside the research station simply broke. There was no other way to describe it. The darkness split open like a wound in reality, revealing something that defied human understanding. Massive technological structures emerged, ships that were more like living nightmares than any spacecraft humans had ever imagined. They weren't just machines. They were something between technology and a living organism, with surfaces that moved and pulsed like diseased skin. Alarms blared. Jack Martinez was already moving before most people could even understand what was happening. Zara stood at the central control panel, her entire body now a swirling mix of colors that seemed to pulse with warning and determination. "Void Hunters," she whispered, her voice carrying a weight that made everyone in the room freeze. The first energy weapon struck the station's outer defensive shield. Instead of a typical explosion, something more terrifying happened. The shield began to dissolve, not break, not shatter. Literally dissolve at a molecular level, as if being eaten by an invisible force. Colonel Hansen was shouting orders. Military personnel who had been secretly stationed at the research station moved with practiced efficiency, but Jack knew their traditional weapons would be useless against this threat. Zara's skin was now a complex map of information. Patterns and colors that seemed to be communicating something far beyond human comprehension. She was interfacing with the defensive systems, adapting them faster than any computer could process. "They consume," Zara explained quickly. "Not just matter. Potential. Information. Life itself." The Void Hunter ships were unlike anything Earth had ever seen. They moved with a horrifying intelligence. Each strike was calculated. Each energy burst was designed not just to destroy, but to understand and then convert. Dr. Emily Chen worked frantically at a secondary control station. "Their technology is absorbing our defensive frequencies," she shouted. "They're learning faster than we can defend." Jack moved to Zora's side. "What do we do?" Zora's response was both terrifying and beautiful. Her body began to emit a strange energy, something between a biological signal and a technological transmission. The defensive systems around them started to change. Molecular structures shifted. Adaptive shields began to respond in ways that defied everything they understood about physics. The Void Hunter ships paused. For just a moment, they seemed confused. "Humans are good at something," Zora said, her voice carrying a hint of something Jack would later recognize as pride. Unexpected solutions. Another wave of attacks came. But this time, something different happened. The station's defenses didn't just block. They responded. Energy was redirected. Molecular structures adapted. What should have been a devastating attack became something else entirely. Outside, the Pacific Ocean seemed to react. Waves moved in unnatural patterns. Marine life below the surface responded to frequencies no human could detect. Colonel Hansen watched in disbelief as their seemingly impossible defense worked. "This isn't military strategy," he muttered. "This is something else." Zora looked at Jack. Her eyes held entire universes. "Not all battles are won by fighting," she said. "Some are won by understanding." The Void Hunter ships began to retreat, not defeated, not destroyed, but confused, challenged by something they couldn't immediately comprehend or consume. As dawn broke, the research station stood intact. Damage, change, but unbroken. The first battle was over. But Jack knew this was just the beginning. 3 days after the Void Hunters' first attack, The research station had become something entirely different. What was once a marine research facility now looked like the nerve center of an unprecedented global defense system. Jack Martinez stood in the strategy room, surrounded by holographic displays that showed something extraordinary. Zara's unique abilities had transformed their understanding of defense, communication, and technological adaptation. "We're not just defending," Zara explained, her iridescent skin creating complex patterns that seemed to map out impossible strategies. "We're learning, communicating." Dr. Emily Chen brought up a series of complex data streams. "Their technology is based on consumption," she said. "But we've discovered something remarkable. They have a critical weakness." The holographic display showed intricate technological networks. Zara's fingers traced lines of energy, revealing hidden patterns. The Void Hunter's entire technological system was built on a principle of absolute efficiency. They consumed and converted, always seeking the most optimal solution. "But optimization has a limit," Zara said. Her voice carried a wisdom that seemed far beyond her apparent age. "True survival isn't about being the most efficient. It's about being able to change." Colonel Hansen, who had been skeptical from the beginning, now looked at the data with a mixture of amazement and determination. The military mind was seeing something revolutionary, a defense strategy that was more than just weapons. Jack watched as Zara worked with the team. She didn't just provide alien technology. She taught them a completely different way of thinking. How to see problems not as challenges to be overcome, but as opportunities to understand. The team had developed a series of adaptive communication networks. These weren't just communication systems. They were living networks that could change, learn, and respond faster than any traditional technology. When the Void Hunters tried to probe or consume these networks, they would find something unexpected. A system that didn't just resist, but actively learned from the attempt. "We're creating a language," Dr. Chen explained. "A way of communicating that the Void Hunters can't easily understand or consume." Zora's skin shifted to colors that seemed to pulse with excitement. "Not a weapon," she repeated. "A connection." The research station had become more than a defensive position. It was now a beacon, a signal to other potential civilizations that there was another way to face an existential threat. Late that night, Jack found Zora looking out at the ocean. The same waters that had brought her to Earth now seemed to hold new meaning. "Why are you helping us?" Jack asked. It was a question he had asked before, but this time he wanted a deeper answer. Zara's response was simple but profound. "Because life finds a way. Always." The next morning, they received the first communication from beyond Earth. Not from the Void Hunters, but from other civilizations who had been watching, waiting, hoping. The holographic display lit up with a complex network of signals. Civilizations that had survived by adapting, by understanding, by seeing potential where others saw only threat. Colonel Hansen looked at the display, his military mind finally understanding what Zara had been trying to explain from the beginning. "This isn't just about defending," he said quietly. "This is about connecting." Zara smiled, a smile that contained entire universes. The first true global defense was being born, not through weapons, but through understanding. The final confrontation was nothing like anyone expected. The Void Hunters returned, but this time, they didn't come with weapons. They came with something far more complicated: curiosity. Their massive ships appeared in Earth's orbit, but instead of attacking, they began to receive the complex communication networks that Zara and the human team had developed. What should have been a moment of terror became something entirely different. Jack Martinez stood in the main control room, Zara beside him. Her iridescent skin now moved with patterns that seemed to translate entire conversations happening across unimaginable distances. "They're listening," Zara said quietly. "Really listening." Dr. Emily Chen worked frantically at the communication panels. The networks they had developed weren't just defensive systems. They were a new form of communication, a language that went beyond words, beyond technology. The Void Hunters had always consumed, always converted, but for the first time, they were being presented with something they couldn't immediately understand or break down. A system of survival that wasn't about resistance, but about connection. Colonel Hansen watched in disbelief as the most advanced military tracking systems showed something unprecedented. The Void Hunter ships weren't attacking. They were communicating. Zura explained it in a way that seemed to blend poetry and mathematics. They understand potential differently, she said. They see life as a resource to be optimized. But optimization isn't just about efficiency. It's about growth, about understanding. The research station had become more than a defensive position. It was now a bridge between civilizations. The adaptive technologies they had developed weren't just about protecting Earth. They were about showing a different way of existing. Holographic displays showed complex networks of communication, not just between humans and Zura's people, but between multiple civilizations that had been watching, waiting. The Void Hunters had always been seen as a threat, but now something else was happening. We're not fighting, Jack realized. We're teaching. The Void Hunters began to change. Their ship structures started to shift, not through destruction, but through understanding. They were learning a new way of existing, a way that wasn't about consumption, but about connection. Zara's skin created complex patterns, a language that seemed to bridge entire universes. Life finds a way, she repeated, the phrase that had become their motto. As days passed, something extraordinary happened. The Void Hunters didn't leave. They didn't attack. Instead, they began to integrate, to understand, to see potential in a way they never had before. The research station became something more than anyone had imagined, a place of first contact, of understanding, of transformation. On the last night, Jack found Zora looking out at the ocean. The same waters that had brought her to Earth months ago. So much had changed. What happens now? Jack asked. Zora's response was both simple and profound. Now we continue to learn, to grow, to understand. The Pacific Ocean crashed against the shore, a reminder of the journey that had brought them here. From a single rescue on a stormy night to a moment that would change the course of multiple civilizations, humanity had been given a chance, not to fight, not to conquer, but to connect. And they had taken it.